Welcome to the Generation Elevation podcast, a conscious, connected platform for those who are ready to manifest their dream life. I'm your host, Elise Riley, a former PT, now motivational speaker, igniting empowerment and transformation all across the globe. Here at Generation Elevation, we are committed to bringing you the most inspiring guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and advice to help you progress closer to living a life of your own terms. I believe in the integration of your body, your mind, and your soul. I will always advocate for health, for wellness on a mental, spiritual, and physical level. If you've been listening to my podcast for a while now, you'll know this. And if you're new today, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into the Generation Elevation podcast. And before we get into it right now, guys, if you could make sure you subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on, making sure that you give this show a 5-star review and rating, screenshot, share it to your stories, because the more people that have access to this show, the more people we can then help as well. So today I'm going to speak on I guess for some people it may be a controversial topic. However, I'm going to dive deep into the metaphysics of things like endometriosis, PCOS, pain with your menstrual cycle, PMS, STIs, etc. And my question or my hypothesis is going to be questioning the culprit being your mindset. Now, I'm definitely not a doctor. And today I just am here to bring you an abstract philosophical concept that has personally helped me. So I'm only going to be speaking from personal experience today. Through my journey, especially starting as a personal trainer and nutritionist, found that I was working with many women, especially who experience severe endometriosis and PCOS, or even just PMS or pain with their menstrual cycle. Now, to really get clear on the mindset being the culprit of something like this, we need to explain what specifically metaphysics actually means. So metaphysics, it is basically a branch of philosophy that explores fundamental questions about reality, existence, knowledge, and the nature of being. It goes beyond the physical and observable aspects of the world and delves deep into abstract concepts and principles that underlie the nature of reality. So with metaphysics, it's all about what the physical eye cannot actually see, and more about the purpose and the meaning. Philosophers and thinkers contemplate questions such as the nature of reality. And if you have been on your personal development journey, I'm sure you're at that phase where you're starting to question everything, okay? I have been through that, and I still do question everything, and I think that I will always continue to do so, because questions lead to answers, and answers create more questions, and that is how we learn and grow, right? So essentially, metaphysics seeks to understand the fundamental nature of reality and the existence of itself. It involves conceptual, abstract reasoning, speculation, and exploring ideas beyond what can be directly observed or measured. So what I'm going to speak about today isn't going to be specifically PubMed, Google Scholar, science facts, okay? These are new concepts, and you may find throughout my whole entire podcast, the topics that I discuss are super new. Mindfulness techniques, mindfulness interventions. Oh my gosh, guys, I was looking and scouting through PubMed the other day, and there is very minimal studies on mindfulness-based intervention. So for me to say science proves that it is hard to say, because a lot of the science out there around mindfulness has a biased view, because the people that have published these studies are actually funding the studies themselves. So you can see how it can be a form of bias, and we all are human. We all have our own bias. So I thought, okay, well, this is a very different concept. Endometriosis, PCOS, menstrual cycle pain, STIs, these are all very serious topics. And for me, I was kind of a bit iffy about whether I should even share this with you all today or not. But then I asked myself, by not sharing this, who am I not actually helping? Could potentially sharing this today actually help one person? And my answer was yes. So hence why I'm here today sharing this with you, because I believe someone out there is going to resonate. And honestly, this is something that I've utilized with clients behind the scenes as well. And the results are incredible. So let's get into it. Okay, so before I actually get into the metaphysics behind all of these things, I thought it'd be important to actually explain and describe what endometriosis is, PCOS, etc. Because obviously, if I'm going to talk about the root cause, we're going to need to know what specifically these things are, so that maybe if you have been experiencing these symptoms, you could go, oh, maybe that's what's going on in my body, or potentially you could even resonate with maybe your partner's going through this, or just a general base of awareness, I think is important as well. Know that the symptoms that I talk about here today, like I said, I'm not a doctor. If you are experiencing any of these things, or you feel like you might be, definitely just go and get checked up by your local GP. They're going to be able to give you an expert opinion on that. So from my understanding, endometriosis is basically a condition where the tissue that lines the uterus, so the endometrium, grows outside of the uterus. It's usually commonly on the fallopian tubes, ovaries, or pelvic organs. So it's an abnormal growth, and it causes immense pain, inflammation, and a lot of scar tissue. Like if you know anyone that has experienced endometriosis before, you would probably know or be aware of how much pain that they are usually in, especially in like their womb space. And it can be pelvic pain, irregular, heavy menstrual cycle, their period, and then also just like really so much pain during sex, and lots of fertility issues as well. Now, PCOS is more of a hormonal disorder, and it affects women of a reproductive age. Basically, it is the overproduction of androgens, male hormones, by the ovaries. Okay, it can disrupt normal ovarian function, and this disruption can result in the development of small cysts on the ovaries. So this can then impact your period. So it could be irregular or absent. You could have excess hair growth, acne. You could have a lot of weight gain. I found that clients that would come to me for personal training wanting to lose weight, that were struggling with this, we'd put them in a calorie deficit, we would put them on a training plan, and they still would find that their weight would maintain over time, even though they were on a severe deficit from my calculations, right? From doing and putting in the numbers, their weight would stay the same. So then we go, okay, well, there's something that is not right here. There's something that is a bit imbalanced or off. Maybe go to the GP and just get checked to see if you have PCOS. And majority of the time they would. So basically, weight gain is definitely a big symptom of PCOS. And it usually can lead to a lot of fertility problems and just some other risks as well, especially as you know, with weight gain can come obesity risks and things like this as well. So then we have PMS, and it basically is just like the physical, emotional, behavioral symptoms that occur in the days or weeks that lead up to menstruation in itself. So if you have a partner that has her regular period cycle, you would probably know, or if you're a female yourself listening, you probably know the days or weeks leading up to menstruation, the bleed, it is when we start to feel certain emotions, maybe get emotional, you might be irritable, you might experience bloating, like sore breasts, fatigue, etc., cravings, right? And it can vary in severity for people. For me, myself, personally, I've been so blessed and so lucky that I don't really experience major symptoms here. Like for me, sometimes I just get a little bit tired or just like I get a few cravings, but nothing crazy. However, then I've heard stories and clients have come to me where the whole week is a write-off before they get their period. And if you're trying to lose weight or have a specific goal in performance and you are affected really severely from your period, then this can just throw everything out the window. Those goals that you work hard for the other 3 weeks of the month, can be so annoying. So we're definitely going to address, okay, how can we potentially look at the metaphysics and potentially help these symptoms here? I'm going to only briefly touch on STIs today, but an STI is basically just a sexually transmitted disease, an infection that spreads through sex, and it's caused by bacteria, viruses, parasites, and just other microorganisms. Its common examples are chlamydia, gonorrhea, herpes, that kind of thing, and it can have a range of symptoms. So if you feel like, oh, maybe I have these symptoms that are related to these STIs, definitely just go get checked. If you are sexually active, I would just recommend doing that anyway. Even just before you meet someone, if you're in the dating scene, I think it's just really good to just know. And I think for me in my life through school, this wasn't made a thing. So it was very taboo. And I felt like if I was to ever go and do that, I would feel nervous and I'd feel ashamed of myself and I would never actually go, until I started working on my mindset and I started going okay, well, this is something that I'm going to do. If I'm going to have partners in the future, if I'm going to meet someone new, I want to make sure I am healthy, and this is part of that. So definitely, if you haven't got this as a regular routine, I would highly recommend. So now we know the definitions of these things I'm going to talk about today. Let's head into the actual metaphysics of these things. So, like I said, metaphysics is not just limited to one particular approach. It can be differential between individuals. Everyone's going to be different. What I say today might not just be the thing that goes. It might not be for you. However, it could be. And that's why I thought to myself, well, by not sharing this, I could be doing a disservice to someone. So essentially, if you are in the spiritual world, you may have heard of chakras before. And if you're not spiritual and you're like, oh, she's going to talk about the chakras, I'm out of here. It's okay. Essentially, what I use chakras for is to explain the certain areas of the body. Now, we have our root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, our heart, throat, third eye, and then our crown. So the root chakra is the bottom of the spine. Sacral is between your belly button and the bottom of your spine. And then your belly button is your solar plexus. So then we have our heart, which is our heart, throat. Third eye is just between your eyes and the middle of your forehead, the right and center of your prefrontal cortex. And then crown is just the top of the head. Now, if you connect this to the endocrine system, we actually have hormone producing glands at each energy center of the body, or each chakra. And that is why I work closely with these chakras or energy centers or hormonal glands, because at the end of the day, it's all linked. It's just a label that you put on it to make yourself feel comfortable in whichever world or reality that you live in. So whatever you want to call it, I'm just going to call it today the womb space sacral chakra, okay? And essentially, our reproductive organs lie here. Obviously, our sexuality, they represent our creativity and emotional well-being, okay? Now, for me, I believe that emotions can be stored in our body, and this has been proven with many personal development books out there. There is a book called The Body Keeps Score and You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Oh my gosh, if you like reading, definitely write those down, because these are awesome reads if you want to learn more about your body and how emotion is stored in there. Part of my work and what I do with athletes, what I do with entrepreneurs, is helping them release these contracted emotions, because emotions have vibration. And if you're feeling low vibrational emotions, it's going to block you from your high vibrational manifestations. So what I do is I actually help my clients release any lower vibrational emotions to help them elevate to their goals. Now, if you are following me, we have our womb space, our genitals, etc. This is really symbolic of our creativity. That is where our creations come to be birthed. Yeah, that's where that's where we give birth. So I want to note as well, these observations, they're not based on scientific evidence. Like, could you imagine a PubMed study being funded for something like this? There's just not enough funding in this area to really know 100% and see it on paper. But like I said earlier, metaphysics isn't about being able to see with your eyes, but almost feel within your own discernment. So today, I just encourage you to lean into your own discernment. You're an empowered being. You can make a decision for yourself on what resonates and what doesn't. So in relation to our sacral chakra, our womb energy center, right? Some belief systems suggest that there's a connection with the ovaries in women and the testes in men, and that the ovaries are responsible, obviously, for reproduction and reproductive hormones such as estrogen, progesterone in females. And these hormones can play crucial roles in menstrual cycles, fertility, and reproductive health. And then for the testes, for guys, they produce testosterone and are responsible for male reproductive functions. So the metaphysics behind this, okay, if we look at books like The Body Keeps Score, the author explains how after trauma, some people can experience the world through an altered nervous system, and it can result in a whole range of physical symptoms, including like chronic fatigue and other autoimmune diseases. So previous studies, now I spoke about this with Holly Sinclair from the Women's Series podcast on an episode on my show a few months ago. So if you haven't listened to that, go check it out. And we spoke about a study that explained that 79% of women who were in this study, and there was thousands, that had confirmed endometriosis, like clinically confirmed, had reported that they'd experienced severe chronic abuse when they were in their childhood. Now, there's been previous studies reported that physical and sexual abuse are associated with chronic pelvic pain, and there have been links between childhood physical abuse and endometriosis, and this study was one of the ones that really emphasized that. There is also another study that I did find by Lehman and others, a risk factor for developing of endometriosis is what it's called, from the Human Reproduction, volume 33. And I truly believe it's just more of a societal conditioning that we then buy into through movies, through media, etc. A lot of religion these days can explain that like sex or having multiple partners, etc., can be a sin. Not that I grew up in that sort of environment, but I'm sure some of you listening to this right now may be challenged by this belief, may also have grown up in that sort of environment also. For me, I was really grateful that I didn't. However, I still had this like societal conditioning of like, oh, I don't want to be considered a slut or anything like this, awful things that people say about sex, when really it's just a normal human thing. I was so ashamed of this normal bodily function of being a woman, and I'm so grateful that I grew up in a family that was really open and honest about the topic of sex, and at the same time I still had that fear of how I was going to be perceived by expressing my sexuality and talking about sex as well. Like, this is something that I was so shy about and scared. So for me, I hated being a girl going up through high school. I hated being a woman. I hated having a period. And I actually got the Implanon put in my arm, and that got rid of my period. And for me, I was like, at the time, yes, like I don't have to have a period. Like, guys, if you're listening, like bear with me. And for me, I was so happy about not being and embracing my feminine, or this feminine process. And I'm sure some of you listening could resonate with this. So for me, I grew up with that, and I was heavily masculine, a heavily masculine energy, and always training, like go, and always dressing like a guy, not embracing my femininity. And I hated being a girl. I really hated being a girl, and I would hang out with all the guys because I just hated being a girl. And then therefore my projection was I didn't like other women either, because they were just reflecting back to me the rejection of my own femininity. So where I'm going with this is that if you've grown up in a household, in a society that potentially puts a lot of shame and guilt over sexuality and gender roles and things like this, you may have stored the emotion of guilt, shame, fear in your body. So in Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, she mentions that she believes we create every so-called illness in our body. And the body, like everything else, is a mirror of our inner thoughts. And if our body is talking to us, it's time to listen. Just like an elderly person has a lifetime of wrinkles, you can usually tell how their life has played out for them, the beliefs that they've had, whether they've lived in fear or worry or anger, or if they've had a really genuine happy life. Those that are older, we can see whether they've had a vibrant, happy life by how youthful and vibrant they are. When I first moved to the Gold Coast, I remember seeing all the elderly people doing Tai Chi on the beach and out surfing with me. I was like, whoa, like these guys are like half their age. They look half their age. They're acting half their age. They're amazing. They're so youthful. Whereas when I was living in Melbourne, it was a lot different. And so I asked you to reflect on maybe the elders in your life and knowing maybe them on a personal level, looking at their appearance and connecting the dots between how their life has played out for them and whether their body is actually showing you that now. So in this book, she explains, starting with endometriosis, that it's based off a feeling of insecurity, disappointment, frustration, replacing self-love with sugar. And if you're feeling like, if you have endometriosis, that it's like a blaming disease, whereby it's not caused by blaming itself, but potentially you are someone that is blaming other people, blaming your situation, external circumstances, etc. So I encourage you, as I read these out, to really reflect, okay, well, where am I doing this in my life? Is this something that resonates with me? Because in this book, she explains that for most holistic health practitioners that use this, it's 90 to 95% true. It runs true most of the time. However, studies are not out there to say this is factually correct. So I'm going to put that out there. However, could you imagine like PubMed or whatever posting something like this that is going against all pharmaceuticals and the industry? I believe it's important to have an integration of all of the things. So if you experience endometriosis and you are getting proper physical help from your doctor and nothing is working for you, then I encourage you to lean into, okay, do you have any insecurities? Do you have feelings of disappointment about something? Do you feel frustrated? Do you have self-love practices that aren't revolved around food? Do you blame your situation, experience, circumstance? If this resonates with you, the new thought is, I am both powerful and desirable. It's wonderful to be a woman. I love myself and I am fulfilled. I believe if you can just keep thinking that thought, regardless if you have endometriosis or not, regardless of whether this metaphysical perspective will heal you or not, I believe having that thought anyway will benefit you regardless. Then I looked into PMS, and I believe PCOS ties in between endometriosis and PMS. If you have feelings of insecurity or guilt or shame about your sexuality, like in the past how I did, about like being afraid of being a woman, hating being feminine, these are all related. PMS, the old thought in this book explains that it's giving your power to an outside influence. So maybe you have people-pleasing tendencies. Maybe you have rejected your feminine process. For me, like, have you even looked at yourself in the mirror fully? Fully. Have you really looked at yourself? Have you really loved on all parts of your body? Have you really loved on the fact that you get to have a period? Have you loved on the fact that your body gets to create a baby if you choose to? Isn't it amazing that we have a society now where we can choose? Isn't it amazing that we have a body that has all these functions that half of the time we don't even know what they are for, but they keep us alive. They keep us well. It is amazing to be a woman, and it took me a long time to really, truly discover that. And it is amazing to know that I am powerful when I embody that, rather than relying on Tom, Dick, and Harry outside of my experience to give me the answers. I started trusting myself. I started trusting my own intuition, relying on my own discernment to make decisions. And the new thought for this is that I am powerful. I am a powerful woman, and every part of me functions for me. If you can change your old thoughts to that new thought, regardless of what happens, I believe it will benefit you. And then I had a look into STIs, and the list is for different certain ones. So I'll just pop a few here, and then if you have any questions, you're so welcome to message me. And if you're wanting further help, I can either see whether you'd be a good fit for a client working with me, or I could refer you to someone who I believe can help you best and best serve you. So what the book had written down was, for example, herpes. There is a old thought saying that there's a mass belief in sexual guilt. So if you've ever felt guilty for being sexually active, or you felt like guilty potentially for sleeping with someone that you shouldn't have, or whatever your situation is, okay? Being truly honest here. When you feel guilt, usually what comes with that is the feel that you need to be punished, that you feel publicly shamed for what you have done. Maybe you believe or had an old belief in a punishing God, that you have sinned. Maybe you've rejected your genitals. Maybe you've just I hate my body, right? If you're hating your body is going to respond back to that. It's going to communicate that back to you, okay? The new thought is, my concept of God supports me. I am normal and natural. I rejoice in my sexuality. I am wonderful. Then I also wrote down cold sores, because I know some of you may resonate with this one as well. The old thought here for this one wrote that it's burning to bitch, or bitter words left unspoken. And the new thought is, I think and speak only words of love. So if you're finding that potentially you're getting sucked into bitching about other people, and trust me guys, in the past, before I did any of this work, I was so sucked into that at high school, and it's really important. As soon as you become aware, as soon as you know better, you now then act better. So now that you know that you can be aware of it, and now you can change. The new thought for this is, I think and speak only words of love. Then I wrote down thrush and yeast infections as well, because that was in there. And the old thought is the feeling of being scattered, lots of frustration, anger, demanding, and untrusting in relationships. So if you're experiencing flare-ups of this, the new thought is, I give myself permission to be all that I can be. I deserve the best in life. I love and appreciate myself and others. If you're feeling scattered, I highly recommend going through my podcast. I've got heaps of mindfulness-based tools for you that you can utilize to help you feel grounded, to help you make decisions better, to help you trust yourself, and how to build your confidence. So like I said today, if you have experienced any of these symptoms, or you feel like this is going on for you, I recommend going to your local GP and just having a general health checkup. And at the same time, know that if you've been experiencing this for a while and you feel like nothing's working, I hear you. And I really hope that even just one thing resonated with you today on this podcast. Like I said, there is that study that says that 79% of women had an association with sexual trauma from their childhood, and then later in life experience endometriosis. There is some merit in that. And like I said, in 10 years' time, who knows, maybe there will be studies and more funding into the metaphysics and topics such as this. For now, this is all that I can give you. And I hope that by giving this and sharing this today, it just helps at least one person. And if you know of someone that is experiencing these things, I highly recommend if you could just share this podcast to them. Who knows, maybe you could then help that person as well. So with that said, if you liked today's episode and you want to hear more metaphysical episodes like this one, make sure you let me know. Head to my podcast Facebook group. It's just Generation Elevation. The link is in my Instagram bio. Join me there and let's start the topic of conversation. I want to hear your opinions, how this resonated for you in your life. And regardless, guys, like whatever happens at the end of the day, I think if we can start thinking more positively and talking to ourselves more kindly and accepting ourselves fully, sexuality and all, I really believe that regardless, it's going to increase your well-being anyway. So I feel like there's nothing that can go wrong here. I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for being a part of the Generation Elevation community. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating, written review, share, and tag me on Instagram at elise.riley. Until next time, keep loving, keep learning, and keep rising.